national security is more important than individual will. All sports broadcasts will proceed as normal. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your boss or supervisor. Shut up! Be happy! Obey all orders without question. The comfort you've demanded is now mandatory. Be happy. At last, everything is done for you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We have 58 minutes left in transmission. I may even do a bit of overdrive today. Syndicated talk show host, a best-selling author, researcher Steve Quayle, who just last Monday on air said he thinks a stage flu epidemic was in the works and that he had intel on that. And then look at what broke 4 or 5 days later. We've had a big 6.0 earthquake in Mexico City on top of things to make things even crazier. And Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, medical doctor who runs a clinic in Mexico down there in Monterrey at a huge conference at a 5-star hotel there at that medical city, one of the most lavish in the world. They fly from Saudi Arabia, you name it, the U.S., to go to that medical center. That's been shut down. They've been told, you fly out of the country. If you don't take this plane, we're going to put you on a bus and make you leave tomorrow. So all of that happening, the media hyping this, and then saying, well, this may not be it, but another big one is coming. Get ready. And then we know the last few big flus broke out at military bases, the one that killed 40 million in 1918, then the 1976 one they used for forced inoculations that killed a bunch of people. Steve Quayle, we're about to break, but thanks for joining us on short notice. What's your inside scoop on what's happening?
Well, Alex, your emergency broadcast Saturday night was very well timed because the same control mechanism that was set up in the airborne command for martial law, basically ordered a stand down of all HF frequencies with the military. In other words, this is not the big event. This is the initiating event. This is the igniter event that's going to push us right there. And I got to tell you, Alex, this is not just something that's going to go away, because with the World Health Organization and all the different shills and the mouthpieces for the CDC and mainstream news, remember, this is the agenda. Back in, I think you've already talked about this, but back in the Air Force study that was written in 1996, that they were predicting that in 2009 there'd be a live H5N1 avian flu virus that would destroy 30 million people.
Yeah, let me stop you there. That was in my stack, and I got so busy in the last 3 hours. That was one of my top stories, and I never even got to it because I'm trying to not scare people. I'm trying to get some calm here, but I think people are owed to know the fact. This was written in March 5th, 2009, so a month and a half ago. Kurt Nimmo, with links to the now declassified documents, U.S. Air Force study proposed a 2009 influenza pandemic for just this time of year. So, Steve, we'll get your expert analysis on that straight ahead. Yeah, I got a bad feeling about all this, and I agree with Steve. This is the initiator for something big, as Homeland Security head chortled and said. Steve Quayle is our guest. Stay with us.
Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
I have been attempting the last 3 hours and 8 minutes to just give you all sides, all angles, all possibilities. Did the Mexican government hype just a normal flu release to create fear, to kind of nip in the bud the revolution that was online to overthrow the government by this summer? Well, the problem is they're certainly using it for that. The problem here, though, is that this is 3 different flus, bird, pig, human mixed, from all over the world. It always comes out of Asia. And there's 2 different flu seasons in the world, their season and our season. It always comes from there, always. Now it's appeared in Mexico. The reports we're getting, and it's been confirmed by BBC and others, is there's a lot more deaths than they're saying, a lot more illnesses than they're saying. But flu does that, kills 15,000 plus Americans every year and tens of thousands of Mexicans, because they have less health care, even though there's less people down there. 100 million per capita, but more die down there. Of their 100 million people, more than 15,000 die per year. You can pull up those numbers. But why are they hyping it so much then? I want to get Steve Quayle's take on this. Steve, you've got the floor. Break it down. with your years of researching this, your sources, what you think's going on here?
Well, first of all, the 1918 Spanish flu virus was cultivated by cadavers when specific teams from Fort Detrick and other countries went to areas where the cadavers or the corpses would have been preserved. Now, Alex, I was the first guy, I'm only saying this to put things into perspective, to state that the reason this is being cultivated is to be integrated into a biological cocktail that would be released at a later date. Do you remember that? I said that on George Norrie. I said that on...
No, you've been saying that for over a decade everywhere.
Yes. So the point is that based on my information, listen, what most people don't understand is that the biological weapons now are race-specific, and I want to cover this. I don't know if you've already covered this, but about a decade ago, one of the most famous bioengineer scientists was arrested in South Africa who was working on race-specific gene-markered bioweapons. In other words, if they want to target whites, they can target whites. They want to target blacks, they can target blacks, Latinos, Mexicans, you name it.
And HIV has been reverse engineered. That's why it's hundreds of times more deadly to blacks, especially because they have the coupler points for it to plug in on, and pure Northern Europeans do not even have it. That's why they've got studies in BBC just a few months ago about Italians, Southern Italians that have had a big African influx over the past few thousand years. Southern Italians are very susceptible to HIV, but Northern Italians, which are really Austrians basically, can't get it.
Absolutely. Now, here's what I want people to understand. Understand this, that you're going to be sent on a massive amount of mixed signals. Number one, it isn't genetically altered. Yes, it is. Nothing in nature has this. Now, Alex, this specific strain and the strain that will come thereafter and the mutant variations in between, imagine having tentacles on the ends of the genes that are basically able to grab any form of mutating viruses and or bacteria. This is how evil and sinister this is. And I think that people had better understand that this is not a trial run. This is the initiating run for the big run. We know this, and I got to touch on this because you need to hear this. On Saturday, when you were doing your emergency broadcast, the entire command and control for martial law goes up in an airborne command structure. They ordered...
That's the 5 doomsday planes, which they now admit were activated. They told folks Sunday morning and admitted they initiated the martial law control grid under the executive orders. Go ahead.
Absolutely. But what you don't know is that, well, you were on the air, the order went out to literally every single military let's say, asset that was on HF, high frequency, was told to get off. At the same time, every state's emergency communications network was activated. So when people think, Alex, that this is just a bunch of brouhaha that has no relevance, that's how serious it was. You need to understand that what was going on Saturday night was the entire command and control structure ready to go at a moment's notice. Alex, what I'm concerned about first and foremost is this. No one has done more investigation in the public sector with the assets that are available than I have in the genetically altered modification of viruses. From the time Mad Cow first broke out, I said, listen, this is going to be used as a bioweapon prior to it being released in Great Britain. I said, when you've got guys down in New Guinea checking out the headhunters for the disease called Kuru, I said, you can bet your bottom line somebody's developed a bioweapon. The thing that concerns me the most is the art and antiquities guy in Mexico that died 12 hours later after shaking Barack Obama's hand. The fact that we don't know, the expedient nature of his death or how long he may have been exposed prior to dying is telltale to me. Again, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, I wrote the book Breathe No Evil. And Alex, given the 96 report, given what's going on, given everything that's taking place, this is the traditional shot fired across the good ship Lollipop USA, and people had better get serious. Now, here's something I think everybody's got to consider. If this is a specific race or a race-specific or a genetically marked targeted group of people, a friend of mine, Doug McIntosh, just sent me an email saying, Steve, Cinco de Mayo is coming up, and if it is the race-specific bioweapon, then remember this, Alex, all you would need is people who to gather in large groups across the country who are what would you say, specifically susceptible to this form of genetically altered virus, and the rest is going to be history. And listen, Alex, it's not you and I making up these numbers, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. Ladies and gentlemen, what has been done is to supercharge three of the most virulent pathogens that have ever been genetically tweaked in the history of this world. This is absolutely no exaggeration that this thing is being put forth in its initial phase as the initiating trigger to whatever else is out there. I want to tell you something about chemtrails. They can poo-poo everything they want to poo-poo about it. But when chemtrails started having genetic binders incorporated into the barium and all the aluminum and everything else that they were spraying, the point that was obvious is that at some point, let's consider that